Welcome to the RaceGuru Thunder Hour. As usual, I'm Rich Maletto. You can find me on the Xbox machine, which I am currently in Xbox jail, but you can find me at Fantasy Bosco. And as always, the one, the only, the myth, the man, the legend, Sean Engel. You can find on the Twitter box machine at Sean E247, and it's spelled the cool way, S-E-A-N. We don't need them extra letters around here, Sean.
That's exactly the way it should be done, man. You know how it is. It's the cool way.
That's right. I really do get confused when it's S-H-A-W-N. Like, it throws me for a loop. I don't know why, but it really does. So, hey, this is the Race Guru Thunder Hour, brought to you by FantasyGuru.com, all a part of the Elite Plus platform. Boy, I guess I couldn't say that 3 times fast if I wanted to. Be sure to check out the platform. We have all sorts of stuff. You can always find Jeff's podcast, One Man's Opinion. He won't call himself a life coach, but he's my life coach. Give that podcast a check out. And of course, Minor Marsal's over there. We got our coaching streams. We've got, man, there's so much stuff on the platform there, Sean. I can never get it all out. And I believe we still have all the fire promos going on, right? 50% off the whole elite packages, right? With the code 50 special. Honestly, folks, I said it last week. Take advantage of the all-in MVP package. $400 gets you 12 months of everything. If you want the game time MVP package, hey, that's NBA, NHL, PGA, MMA, soccer, racing, more. $39.99 gets you 12 months. That's ongoing. So, hey, just because the season's over now or almost over, you pick it up next year. Just think about it. You can sign up now and you get all of next year's stuff for NHL, NBA, and whatnot. Ooh. Sean, it has been one crazy week for NASCAR. It may have been the biggest stinker of a race we've seen in quite some time, but there was plenty of news and notes and all sorts of stuff going on. And hey, I don't know about you, but I'm excited for the upcoming weekend. This is the greatest weekend of the year for racing purposes. We've got Monaco on F1. I don't know how many people will get up early to tune in and watch that, but follow that up with the Indy 500. Follow that up with the Coke 600. I mean, I don't know about you, man, but there's like 1,300 miles of racing to watch this weekend.
Oh, there is plenty of motorsports action in order to go around and catch all across the different networks. If you're a racing fan, you're probably going to be making the time some way, somehow to at least catch some of the action. I know at least with some of the action, I certainly will, especially for the NASCAR race at Charlotte, the longest race of the year, the Coke 600. Going to be real interesting there, Rich.
You know, outside of like 24-hour Le Mans, Daytona, etc., and some of the stuff with the rally cars do, it really is the longest race in motorsports. F1 doesn't run this long. Indy doesn't run this long. Nobody else does. And you know, it was formerly known as the World 600 back in the day. It has been a crown jewel event for NASCAR for decades at this point. It really has. You know, the track doesn't go back quite as far as, say, Martinsville and Darlington, but it's in the ballpark of those places.
Oh, for sure, for sure. There's a lot of history, a lot of pedigree, a lot of prestige behind it, a lot of tradition behind it, too. It's just something that's been around for the longest time.
It really has. And, you know, we went racing at one of the oldest tracks this past weekend. I mean, people forget about it because, you know, we didn't race there for years and years and years, but North Wilkesboro has its own historic, you know, representation among NASCAR. I mean, they even found, I know they said they didn't see anything in the tunnel underneath the stairs. I don't think they did a good job investigating. I doubt there's still a still down there, but I bet you there's remnants of such a thing. I mean, I don't know if people know this, but I believe it was North Wilkesboro where one of the revenuers was chasing a driver, and at the end of the race, the driver just drove through the gate and said, "See ya, come get me." I mean, you got to love NASCAR history, man.
Yeah, there's so much different wild little stories and just so many different nuggets of interesting knowledge that you can really find there within NASCAR history. I mean, when you consider how many years NASCAR has been around, you can always find something very new and fascinating just about almost any year, any race you can look.
So you want a little fun nugget for the upcoming weekend?
Did you know?
Did you know this was Dale Earnhardt's first opportunity to race was at Charlotte? Do you know how he got that opportunity?
How did he get it?
He took over a ride that was supposed to be driven by Willie T. Ribbs. Willie T. Ribbs got in a police chase, and was unable to drive. And so, shoot, I can't remember the team owner at the time, reached out to Dale Earnhardt Sr. and asked him to hop in the car.
Crazy stuff, man. Absolutely crazy.
And Willie T. Ribbs, he has his own history. I mean, from Indy 500, he was a staple at the Indy 500. And, we haven't had a lot of, people of color in racing. He was one of the few that was carrying that banner across all sorts of venues and series. But I always find it funny that if it wasn't for Willie T. Ribbs, Dale Sr. never would have even gotten a look potentially, because that race ended up leading. He didn't, have a bunch of races thereafter, but that race is what kind of launched his opportunity in what was then, I don't know if they called it the Grand National, but it's what's developed into the NASCAR Cup Series. So I always, there is so much. The month of May is just my happy time, Sean. There is so much history between Indy and Charlotte and NASCAR that, man, you could just get buried in information. But before we do that, let's talk about last weekend a little bit, shall we?
Yeah, let's get right on into it there with North Wilkesboro, the All-Star Weekend reaction. So we got two races that happened there, Rich. We had a regular Truck Series race at North Wilkesboro, and we also had our All-Star race for the Cup Series. So let's get into the Truck Series race there first, Rich. We saw multiple leaders, but it ended up being Heim time once again.
No shocker. No shocker. We talked about it. I pushed him in the article. Even without odds or anything else, I said, get on the Heim train early and often. Look, this guy is absolutely dominating the Truck Series, and it will be a shame if he doesn't win the championship. It really will be. His numbers are so good right now. I will be shocked to see anyone come close by the time we get to the end of the year. And we have some great talent in the Truck Series. I mean, Christian Eckes, who led 62 laps. Ty Majeski's on the cusp of a win. I really thought this would be a good showing for him this weekend. Jake Garcia just keeps, impressing at times and kind of flopping at times. Tyler Ankrum ran well. Roger Caruth got back up front again for the first time in a couple of weeks. So, look, I love the fact this track and the Truck Series were a staple back when the Truck Series started. The Truck Series was all about a lot of the short track racing. I wish it would get back to that because, quite frankly, there's a lot of young talent in the Truck Series that is very inexperienced. And, Sean, we see that at a lot of the bigger tracks.
We for sure do. And we see some of these drivers end up struggling at some of these larger tracks where they're just not used to the layouts overall.
Yeah, and not surprising, right? I mean, most of these guys are, learning or honing their skills at local short tracks, regional short tracks, traveling around to other short tracks. I mean, heck, in NASCAR, you can't even drive on the 1.5 miles or bigger until you're 18 years old. So, if we're going to have these guys, like, what's his name? Connor Zilch. It's not Zilch. Maybe it is.
Connor Zilch? Connor Zilch?
Zilch. Thank you.
Yeah, Zilch.
He's what, 16, 17?
17, I believe.
Yeah, you're not going to see much of him. Taylor Gray didn't turn 18 until March of last year, for example. Look where he's at, right? So I'm bummed. It is what it is. NASCAR doesn't give a crap what I think or say, but man, I would love to see more venues like North Wilkesboro on the Truck Series. And look, the Trucks put on a great race. The Cup cars, not so much, but the Trucks put on a fantastic race.
Just goes to show the difference in packages and the way these cars are built and how they drive. Big differences.
Massive. And man, I wish, I'm excited to see the next gen car here at Charlotte, but man, I really wish they'd figure something out on these short tracks in the end, because this whole tire option thing didn't do a darn thing, dude.
Well, let's just put it this way. I think it only put a slight nudge in the right direction. They just didn't go aggressive enough with the wear and have it go out like that. Because it was at least a little bit better than the regular tire. It got a little more grip. The cars were able to move around a little bit more at least. But it's still not quite the level that we're looking or expecting. That's where I think my head is at with that.
I think the fall off wasn't there, right? Because, long into a run, it's not like the option tires were blistering, popping, or any of those sorts of things. And all that happened was the fall off, the speed leveled off with the primary tires, and then we were back to all the cars doing the same speed once we were 30 laps, 40 laps into the run. So, But we're getting ahead of ourselves. I apologize, Sean. We didn't really cover much of the truck race. We covered some of the leaders, talked about Heim. Ty Majeski did win stage 1. Tyler Ankrum won stage 2. You know, those McAlley, Heigelman trucks still have McAnally, Heigelman trucks still have some good speed. They're just a little off from the Tricon guys, and you know, Spire seems to be off a little bit. I'm actually kind of surprised that Rev seems to be doing a little bit better than Spire right now, but
really, I think it's just Corey Heim just leading the banner at Tricon there. Even though Taylor Gray has been on his trail a little bit, it's just Heim making that equipment look like it's 3 times faster than it actually is.
That's true, but Brett Moffitt hopped in after not racing in quite a while and having very limited racing at all in the last 5-6 years. And he looked awfully dominant. You know what I mean? So some of that I'm wondering, have they not been putting the right drivers in the one car?
Yeah.
Is Taylor Gray that much better than Tanner Gray, right? I'm kind of willing to say Dean Thompson is over his head. I feel kind of bad saying that, but quite frankly, dude, you ain't getting it done, and you're not really consistent in any way, shape, or form. And to your point, though, Sean, you and I talked about this before the season started. I did not understand why Heim wasn't given an opportunity to move up. I was very pissed off about it, frankly. And the reality is he's proven it right? I mean, if you told me he had a cup opportunity next year, I would tell you it was deserving.
Well, you know, considering all the different rumors going around, and let's not forget the different charters that are going around that could be up for sale. One of those Toyota teams could easily scoop them up, and then boom, just like that, we got Heim in the Cup Series.
I'm hoping because I tell you what, Heim, Gibbs, we need some of that, man. And with them being younger than the Kyle Busches of the circuit and so on, give me Heim and Gibbs doing this, man. I'm ready for it. I'm just saying. I've been fiending for it. I'm ready. I'm there.
I hope 2311 is the one that scoops it up, because that'd be the perfect fit for him right there.
It really would be, dude. It really would be. I'm with you there, bro. I'm with you there. Some standout finishers. Grant Enfinger, hat tip. They've been okay at times. It's a brand new team. It's unfortunate because, you know, he has such a long history in the truck series, a long history of success even. But we better start paying attention to CR7 and Grant Enfinger, at least on the short tracks, it looks like. So that was good to see. Not shocked to see Lane Riggs up front. Every time we go to a short track, I think he needs to be on our radar. Brendan Queen. How about Butterbean, man? Boy, there was a lot of hype for Butterbean, man.
Yeah, he ended up finishing 4th in his truck series debut. You know what, though? I will give credit. I think they are doing something with that one truck at Tricon, though, where it is probably the drivers that do help make it look good there, too, because, I mean, that one car, it was in the mix a good amount of that whole race there.
And look, Queen has come up with a lot of hype. I mean, if you're into some of the other lower level series, the Car Tour, the ARCA series, watching regional stuff, and just kind of in racing circles, there's a reason you hear the name Butterbean. He's got a nickname. In fact, they had to take his nickname off the truck. NASCAR doesn't allow nicknames on the truck, so he had to change it back to Queen. It's a name we need to watch, man. I mean, again, youngster, right? So we're not going to see him everywhere, but it's a name we need to watch going forward. Sammy Smith had a nice run. I think he needed that in the truck event because he has not been good so far in the Xfinity series. He's been kind of a letdown since moving over to JR Motorsports. JR Motorsports, it seems like everybody just has to take time to get into the flow. Brandon Jones was slow to kind of get on board. We're seeing that even with Josh Berry's replacement in Smith. So it's coming around. Tyler Ankrum, it's his first top 10 since Martinsville. Great call out on that, Sean. That was Sean digging that up for us. He's been fast. It's been really unfortunate because the first 4 weeks of the year, we thought we were going to see a win from him sooner than later, and it hasn't really come to fruition. Daniel Dye, dude, he's hard to get a vibe on, right? Like, he qualifies too well. You don't want to use him, but then he ends up having a nice finish, and he's a great play for DFS because nobody uses him. He qualifies in the back. He's a slam dunk use, and everybody uses him. He's chalk. I don't know what to do with Daniel Dye at this point, man. I really don't.
Well, at this point, though, I think we have to keep him on our radar. He's now finished in the top 10 in 3 of the last 4 truck races.
True story. True story. So even if he's qualifying well, I don't think he's an automatic fade. His price point is still way too low, which is what's mind-blowing. Stuart Friesen, finally. This guy and this team has struggled this year. Even at tracks where their history is good, they have struggled. So kudos to them for a top 10. First top 10 of the year. Another dug-up stat by Sean. Sean, I'm actually not much of a Stuart Friesen fan, but woo! That's rough, man. That is not a way you want to start the season.
Yeah, 7 top 20 finishes, but only his first. It took him 10 races just to even crack the top 10 this year.
Jack Wood, I've had higher expectations for him. He keeps letting me down. A nice 12th place finish this weekend. Stephen Parsons, he's kind of all over the place. He comes from a family of racers, a nice solid 17th finish. Matt Crafton, man, Thor Sport just seems to be off a little bit. I don't think Crafton's lost his edge. I think the equipment is behind. We're seeing it with Majeski not quite getting it done at times. I think they'll come around. You know, Crafton is a vet of Crafton and Infinger and Justin Allgaier. They are, well, I'm sorry. I'm getting Allgaier thrown into the truck series. I don't know why I do that all the time. Infinger and Crafton and Ben Rhodes are the vets of the truck series. They're the staples. 2 of those drivers are, well, Majeski, all 3 drive for Thor Sports. So hopefully they get that figured out a little bit. Jake Garcia, didn't he have a power steering problem?
I want to say that was why he got that, I believe. I think he had some damage and then got that.
I just saw a thing where he wanted to come in because he couldn't drive because of power steering. And the spotter basically told him, quit being a wuss, man up. And I couldn't stop laughing because I don't know how long I've been watching the sport and hearing cars lose power steering. And only recently have I seen the drivers really, really struggle. Like back in the day, these folks, I guess manned up's not an appropriate term anymore, but they would man up and find a way to get it done. Nowadays, when you hear these guys lose power steering, it's like they can't figure out how to drive the car anymore. It's insane.
It's just quite a difference as far as how it handles, and it just goes to show. It also comes with the territory, too. You got a lot of these younger drivers that don't have experience driving these sorts of trucks or these vehicles whenever they lose the steering and when it's not at 100%. So I really think that plays into it, too.
Buttercup. I'm just saying. Ben Rhodes, 22nd. The crew chief change is not helping yet, Sean.
It looked good for about a week or 2, but, not exactly panning out towards the finishes. We also had Connor Jones, 35th after wrecking, so that overall just goes forth and translates towards a bad overall finishing day for Thor Sport Racing. None of their drivers even finished inside the top 10. The closest was Ty Majeski. He finished around 12th. But still, the team led 90 laps combined.
It's got to be frustrating for them because it's probably a few little things that they're missing. Because if you've got enough speed to lead some laps, and look, this isn't the first race Majeski's led laps, right? There's been a couple of races we thought Majeski, midway through the race, was on his way to a win. And I do think Majeski is going to win here very soon, or sooner than later. They're on the cusp. But Thor Sport, they'll get it figured out. Look, racing is cyclical. We see this all the time. I'm not panicking. And look, Thor Sport may not be much this year, but I wouldn't count them out next year type of thing, So, but you're not wrong, Sean. That is a bad day. I'm sure Monday in the debriefing was a bit rough for everybody.
Yeah, especially with considering that Majeski was in position to be in the lead in the win for a little while there, and they just faded back.
Awful. Well, I guess it's time we talk about what I call the shit show of the weekend.
Valid.
Okay. The All-Star race. Look, let me at least give some props. I applaud NASCAR for trying something with this tire. Okay. We obviously saw something at Bristol. And to your point that you mentioned earlier, I just don't think they were aggressive enough. And they're probably afraid because I don't think they want what happened at Bristol. I think they liked the byproduct of what happened at Bristol, but I don't think they want really that type of scenario at Bristol, right? Although I'd argue I'm fine with it. I mean, we want entertainment. I mean, short of, lighting fires and jumps on the backstretch, tires coming apart all over the place outside of what we saw at Indy back in 2008 or whatever it was. I mean, game on, right? So hat tip for trying it. I appreciate them going to North Wilkesboro. I hate the fact that this car has destroyed short tracks and it's giving North Wilkesboro a bad name. I would much rather see North Wilkesboro as part of a points race instead of an exhibition race. I want to do everything we can to keep this track around. It's a unique venue. We need more unique venues. NASCAR, we cannot let them off the hook on killing short track racing because the short track racing is the root of all racing. Everybody starts out in go-karts, sprints, midgets, wing karts, paved asphalt, late models, modifieds, running dirt, running pavement. It's all on short tracks. We cannot let short track racing die at NASCAR's hands. We can't. So I hope they do something, but I applaud them for trying things. But come on, man. Joey Logano led every lap but one.
Yeah, the one lap he didn't lead was led by Brad Keselowski there. But it's just ridiculous. It's just crazy how much that the aero still plays a part into the racing at these short tracks. Although I will give a hat tip to NASCAR for this particular detail, because North Wilkesboro was repaved, and we actually saw cars moving around a little bit, which is something that we can say a little bit more compared to some of the other short track events this year where they just could not.
And you know what? It was really evident during the truck series, right? That's what is really frustrating as someone who watches all the time. And I think you and I have a pretty fine eye of what to watch for. We saw what this track is capable of in the truck race, and we didn't get any of that in the cup race, which I think is frustrating. And you mentioned it here. Ty Gibbs dominated the Open. Logano dominated the All-Star race. Ty Gibbs dominated the Open. The guys that ran well in the Open, they were largely a non-factor in the All-Star race. At least last year, Bubba became a factor throughout the event, So,
yep. Bubba was the closest to being a factor this year, too.
True. That's fair. But we did not see anyone come through the field at all. Kyle Larson started in the back and he moved up a fair bit. The Hendrick guys moved up a bit and they were some of the biggest movers. But overall, there was not a lot of jockeying back and forth on the racetrack.
Only some of the drivers really moved through the field. Chris Buescher, we saw Kyle Larson, and then just to mention it later because he's also on the standout finisher list, Ryan Blaney, who started from the 17th position, went all the way up to 5th. So
True story. And he did it real quietly. You didn't hear them talk about Blaney as he was doing it. What you did hear him talk about, though, was Kyle Busch punting Ricky Stenhouse on lap 2 or 3. I don't remember exactly which lap it was. It was right around 2 or 3. He straight up punted Ricky Stenhouse into the wall. The story of the week was the fight in the garage. My grandpa called it. I'm sitting down there. We're watching it on DVR. And, they show the track. He asked where they're at. And I told him, he goes, well, there's no tunnels there. And I said, no, there's not. He goes, boy, Ricky's going to be awfully hot. He goes, you keep those drivers in there after they get booted like that. He says, they just keep stewing. The man called it. 90 years old, and he predicted this, okay? That's how old racing goes back and how the habits haven't changed in decades, right? Look, I saw the replays, and I don't want to bash, but shame on you, Fox, okay? You showed the one time the replay that gave a real view of what took place that set up the whole scenario, and you never showed it again. You showed every other view that made it look like Ricky run Kyle Busch into the wall, but you didn't go back and show the one replay. Harvick mentioned it. Jamie McMurray mentioned it on Race Hub. Hey, according to the one view, there is no way we blame Ricky Stenhouse. Kyle Busch went high. The hole was there. It's a short race. It's an exhibition race. Ricky filled the hole. That's what you do as a driver. They never showed it again, Sean, and that really upset me because I've seen way too many people running their mouth that they know what they're talking about. And it's like, that's not what happened, people. You clearly didn't see all the action. And my biggest beef, though, whether Ricky connected the punch or not, I can agree that maybe it's not appropriate. In the heat of the moment, I've been known to do stupid stuff. So I'm not going to bash Ricky, okay? I'm not going to say he doesn't deserve some sort of reprimand. But, Sean, I got a real problem when you turn around and find the guy $750,000, $75,000 and then use an image of that, a video of that, and promote that event that stunk, by the way, on the track, and the upcoming event. Like, to me, it's a double standard, and I'm really having a struggle with it. And you mentioned this off air. There's already been somewhat of a precedent. They haven't been real consistent on this precedent. Like, I go back, do you remember Brad Keselowski and Matt Kenseth in the garage between the haulers?
Yeah, I remember that, actually. That was, I want to say, 2014?
Was it that recent? I couldn't tell you the year, man. I just remember the whole headlock and the whole, you know what I mean, giving them the business type stuff. Were there any fines for that one?
No, I don't. Well, actually, no. There were fines actually on Brad K because he caused some other incidents during that particular race when he got into some other drivers, particularly Hamlin, and he did get into Kenseth and Tony Stewart that race.
Okay. I just don't remember anything specifically for giving him the business, but I could be wrong.
There was fines given out that day due to Brad K in particular, just because of how he was driving and the aggressive moves he pulled and doing some of the stuff on pit road there with the car. And
that's right. It was pit road. That's right. It was the whole part on pit. They have been consistent on that. Yeah, I would say that they have been consistent on. When you start seeing them do stupid stuff on pit road while pits are going on or at the end of the race and there's people staying around, they have been fairly consistent on that. But they have not been consistent on the pushing, the shoving, the throwing of the punches. You brought up the Sanchez, Matt Crafton one, did get a little bit of a fine, but I know there's been other ones we haven't seen. The Boris said Greg Biffle one, I don't recall any fines for. Like I said, I don't remember Brad or Matt getting fined for that incident. As far as them fighting and whatnot in the between the haulers, I have no problem. If you want to fine these guys, fine all of them. Let's make it a marginal fine. Like, if you want to say we had to do something, I get it. But when you have such a large number like 75,000, and I don't care what Ricky's salary is. First of all, he doesn't have Hamlin's salary. I can promise you that. Or Kyle Busch's, most likely. You turn around and use it to promote your product. It gives a bad taste to the competitors. It gives a bad taste to the hardcore fans because all they see is consistent inconsistency, right? And I don't think you really deliver a smart message to even young new fans, right? Like, you tell them fighting bad and then you promote it everywhere. It was the best story of the weekend. I'm not going to lie. I'm glad it happened because, Sean, otherwise all we would hear this week is how terrible of a race is and they need to get rid of North Wilkesboro.
Yeah, pretty much. But I know basically NASCAR, according to what they lay out in the rule book, it's based on whether something is premeditated or if it was heat of the moment. Like they were saying and talking about if it was a heat of the moment sort of thing, kind of like what Gregson and Chastain was last year, or was it 2 years ago? Last year, actually.
Last year.
Because Gregson got out of the car directly after the race was done, and the two were still on track and everything. They're like, okay, we can kind of excuse that as long as there isn't like any serious injuries. But here they're like, oh, Ricky had all this time he could have chosen in order to react differently, not throw any punches. He could have just left it at a verbal argument. He would not have been fined. And then boom, they would not have fined him that way.
Here's my problem with the premeditated part. As someone who's been in a car with a helmet on, you're stewing that whole time. Okay. So whether he was premeditated because he was out of the car and sitting in the garage waiting. Again, if there's a tunnel, he's back home. Okay. So NASCAR, that's partly on you and the track. And I'm not saying North Wilkesboro needs to put tunnels in, but I'm just saying that's out of his control. He was trapped there. Okay. When you're in the car, you have these same thoughts. So I can't sit there and say, well, the Noah Gragson, Ross Chastain thing was a heat of the moment thing. It was brewing that whole time from the incident happened. Actually, there's multiple incidents on the track that day that kept leading to it, and it was stewing. And I guarantee you what's going through their mind is, I'm going to punch that in the nose. I can't wait I'm going to go deck that. Beep, 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 beep. God, that is what's going through your head. So for me to sit here and say, oh, yeah, it wasn't premeditated. Again, I go back to Elton Sawyer. You were a terrible driver on the track, and it shows because you have no idea what a racer's mentality is. That's where I'm at with it. They can say all those things, and it's the right things to say. I don't believe them.
Well, overall, though, he was still waiting there with his crew guys.
That was pretty funny, though. He was all
Yeah.
propped up on the truck. Like, I'm not going to get, but I don't think the punch was premeditated. Arguing, yes. I think the punch came when Kyle said, I didn't get into you. You get into me. And Ricky kept saying, I never touched you, not one time. And, you know, you saw him say, I never touched you. I never touched you. And Busch just kept on and kept on. So like, I go back to, I don't think the punch was premeditated. And I don't think it's fair for NASCAR to sit there and say they know it was. To me, it's no more than premeditated. Like I said, sit in the car. Sitting there waiting for him was more of a happenstance because he was out of the car. You know, I get where it comes from. And look, Sean, you and I can disagree on this. I'm not going to, be mad about it or anything. It's just, I don't like the optics of promoting something that you're turning around and saying is bad. And look, Hamlin's fiance said the same thing. Daniel Suarez said the same thing. We've heard similar things from other past drivers. So, like I said, perception's reality. They could sit and dress it up however they want. Just like, well, there's a gray area on restart, Sean.
Yep. I mean, overall, you could say that it was premeditated just because of the time frame and all the different sorts of ways it could have been addressed. Like, it didn't have to happen, but I get where you're coming from, though, as far as promoting it is concerned, though, too. I mean, if NASCAR does not want to have that promoted or be a part of the product, that if they want to, they should keep promoting it, maybe play into it a little bit more. Like I said, even off air, maybe we could have like a little penalty box, like hockey style, and let them go at it like that.
Yeah, for sure,
if you want to promote that, then sure, go right ahead. But if you're going to just try to promote that and say, oh, you're not about that, though, on the other hand, I get where you're coming from with that, because if you're just trying to show off the racing product as it is and just focus on the driving aspect, then of course you don't have to promote all the fighting stuff. But,
I get it. NASCAR's been about passion. That's what they've always said. And where I get been out of shape, too, is the fans whining about it. You complain everyone's vanilla. They show emotion and you cry, right? Like, I said it. I'm a Kyle Busch fan of sorts. He was in the wrong, in my opinion, man, right? I've met Ricky. I like Ricky. All the jokes about Ricky Stenhouse, he drives over his head at times. I still like the guy. I'm not going to say he doesn't drive over his head at times, but it is what it is. There's very few drivers in NASCAR overall that I don't like. Like, I used to boo Mark Martin back in the day, and I hate myself for it. It wasn't deserving, but you find yourself getting in these passionate type of situations. It's unfortunate. I tell you what was fortunate, Noah Gragson getting the fan vote. Now granted, Bubba raced his way in, but based on the boos, I'm not so sure he would have gotten the fan vote like I kind of expected him to, considering the background of Noah getting more or less fired last year for something that was done or said on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. I thought it was kind of cool to see Noah Gragson get the fan vote.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that Gragson was one of the favorites to get the fan vote overall. He does have a very passionate fan base that really goes out the ball for him. And I really do think that if Bubba didn't race his way in, he may have still got it just based on the sheer size of his fan base alone. I mean, it is really huge online to the point where he's one of the few drivers that even somebody that doesn't regularly watch NASCAR might have even been aware of Bubba. So
that's fair. But
I think Gragson
awfully loud, man.
Yeah, they were. The North Wilkesboro crowds do not like him, to put it very lightly.
No, they were not a fan, man. Joey Logano dominated. We talked about that. Denny Hamlin, and to your point about the arrow, here we are, 0.625 mile, more or less flat track, right? I mean, the banking's comparable to Indy, which is considered a flat track, and Hamlin couldn't get around him. I mean, is what it is. Buescher with another great finish, third. Larson, fourth after starting from the rear. Not even, man, we'll talk about Larson later, but I've had a few arguments with a couple buddies that just don't care for him, and I will admit I'm biased, okay? I have been a Larson fan going back to the Ganassi days. I don't believe Ganassi has anywhere near the top-notch equipment that Joe Gibbs or Hendrick has. I am adamant to be a championship driver, you have to be in championship equipment. I'm adamant if you're a meh driver, being in championship equipment will only make you a meh finisher. You need both. Is there anything this guy can't drive, Sean?
The dude's just got so much skill when it comes to just driving cars. It's crazy. You put him in something, if you give him the equipment, he'll make it look good. Let's put it that way.
This guy, seriously, for me, is on par with AJ Foyt, Mario Andretti level. Those were two guys. I don't know if people know this. There's only two drivers that have Daytona 500 and Indianapolis 500 wins. Mario Andretti and AJ Foyt. That's it. Nobody else has. Boy, it would sure be cool if we somehow got that one of these days with the Mr. Kyle Larson, man. Just saying. I mean, not sure that would happen. But you know what Larson has in common with Foyt and Mario Andretti that most of the circuits on either IndyCar or NASCAR don't have in common.
What exactly?
Foyt and Andretti ran USAC. They ran open wheels on dirt and pavement. It's not quite the same as the sprints and midgets that we run today, the 360s, the 410s, but the precursors to those vehicles, AJ and Mario ran those on a regular basis, man. That was real common back then. The money wasn't in racing like it is now. And so you ran a lot of USAC in those midgets, the wing sprints, whatever you wanted to call them at the time. I'm impressed. So I'm putting him on there as far as everything else. He qualified well in Indy. It is what it is, man, right? A couple of standout finishers. Blaney, you mentioned, after starting 17th, came to 5th. Wallace, after starting in the rear because he came out of the open, moved up to 6th. Michael McDowell quietly to a top 10 finish. Granted, there's only 20 cars. Noah Gragson, again, started in the rear, coming out of the open. He was very last car. He was 20th, came back 11th. Ty Gibbs, again, starting 19th or 18th, came up to 13th. So some of those open cars did make some news. You want to rattle this off through the news of the week so far? It's a lot of just regurgitation of penalties here, Sean.
Yeah, we'll go through this first set of items here because we basically covered this, but the Cup Series penalties were just mainly for Ricky Stenhouse Jr. getting fined $75,000. We talked about that. JTG Daugherty mechanic Clint Myrick was suspended for 8 races. JTG Daugherty tuner Keith Matthews suspended for 4 races, and Ricky Stenhouse Sr. is suspended indefinitely from all NASCAR events. There were no other Cup penalties to be had there. Just basically all that as a result of the fight there, Rich.
Yep, no shocker there. The 8 races, though, is big, in my opinion. We haven't seen anything. I'm not surprised about the Ricky Stenhouse Sr. Indefinite. I'm sure he'll have to do things to get back reinstated. I'm sure at some point they'll reinstate him. Hey, when you have a hard card, NASCAR gets that, at their druthers, can pull it at any time. And look, it's one thing, and I'll agree with NASCAR on this. It's one thing when the drivers get into it, when the wives, the dads, the mother, it's a different ballgame.
Yeah, pretty much right there, Rich. But we do have some more penalties. We have a few Truck Series-based penalties here. We got the number 7 rear tire changer, the one for Spire Motorsports, suspended for 1 race due to violating the NASCAR rulebook for crew protective clothing and equipment, particularly the helmet straps there.
What did they do? Like cut them off? Whatever.
And then we also had the crew chief of the number 9 car, Jeff Stankiewicz. He's the crew chief for Grant Enfinger. He got fined $2,500 for 1 unsecured lug nut found on the truck after the race.
They had 4 tight ones. Let's move on. I mean, whatever.
And then we had the Rowan Mason, who was last seen as the mechanic for the number 5 Our Motorsports entry. That's Anthony Alfredo's team in the Xfinity Series. Got indefinitely suspended for violating NASCAR's substance abuse policy.
Now, just so people know on that, this isn't the first driver to do it. There's been a couple of big names that never came back. Shane Meal comes to mind. And I can't remember the other guy that was with the meth deal that got busted at the amusement park with the meth and everything with his girlfriend. But anyway, he can go through the process. He could be back as early as a month. It could be 6 months. It just kind of depends on NASCAR's discretion. They haven't released what the substance was. My guess is he was smoking the reefer.
Potentially, but I guess information will come out of that at some point. But
maybe he was doing bumps and blow in the garage. I don't know.
Who knows? Moving onward, we have ourselves the announcement of the different sorts of drivers and athletes that are being inducted into the NASCAR Hall of Fame next year in 2025. Carl Edwards, Ricky Rudd, and Ralph Moody are all going to be in it. And then Dr. Dean Sicking will achieve the landmark award for outstanding contributions to NASCAR due to his research as the lead developer of the safer barrier.
Oh, he was the guy behind that. The safer barrier has been big in all, and that started in Indianapolis. I don't know if people realize that, but the whole safer barrier thing was started in Indianapolis, and that was the first track to debut it.
Yeah, a little bit of Indianapolis connections there. We mentioned about Indy 500 there. Indy's connected with NASCAR as well, so there's a little connection right there too. There you go.
Yeah. I will say this quickly. If you want my thoughts on the Edwards, Rudd, Moody thing, I am in the camp that Edwards deserves in. Second place once, tiebreaker for the championship. If he wins that tiebreaker, which again, we're talking a tiebreaker here, he's a shoe-in, winning percentage, everything else. I'm tired of hearing the hate. If you want to compare numbers, Carl Edwards is in the discussion, and with that tiebreaker, for me, is automatically in. Ricky Rudd does not have a championship win. He does have one second-place championship. Again, Carl Edwards has two. Right? An Xfinity win, and it's called NASCAR. We've talked about Sam Hart and these other guys coming through. So I'm a little over the Carl Edwards hate, to be honest. Moody for sure deserves in. And at the same time, yes, folks, Harry Gant should be in. Harry Hyde should be in. There are other drivers that should be in. I have bashed the Hall of Fame long enough. I'm not going to go any more on that. If you want to talk, hit me up on the Xbox machine. But I have no problem with this class, other than kind of wish some other people would get in. But this group is deserving. Ricky Rudd got more of the vote than anyone else, and I would argue he maybe isn't quite as deserving as the other two guys, but I digress.
I still think that I think it was appropriate for Rudd to get in. I do not mind the Rudd call.
Nope.
I think Edwards does deserve in order to get in too. Definitely has enough of a resume to get in. Would it be this year?
That's
maybe.
fair.
Maybe.
That's fair. Again, put him in over Harry Gant. I think Gant deserves in over both of them, quite frankly. I think Harry Hyde deserves in over both of them. But I have long griped that they do not give enough mechanics and pit crew members and machine builder or engine builders enough credit in the Hall of Fame, and it's a shame. Most people that know the history of the Hall of Fame are kind of in the ballpark now. It's a joke at this point.
Yeah, I do wish they kind of inducted more people into the Hall of Fame just to kind of compensate for just, so we don't keep having these sorts of discussions every year where we're like, oh, this person should have got in, or no, this person should have also got in. I think they really just kind of ended the whole inducted 4 or 5 people at once thing a little too early, just to give some of these other people their fair due, and then maybe slow it down a little bit later.
I'm with you. Dale Earnhardt, we've talked about this open investing in Cup. I'm curious to see where that goes. More scuttlebutt. There was talk again about him buying the Stewart-Haas charters. I don't see Junior Motorsports as the organization stepping up. I could be wrong. I do think you brought this up before, Sean. The investment stuff is there. I think he absolutely wants to be a part of that.
Yeah, for context, this was Dale Earnhardt Jr. when he went on Sirius XM NASCAR radio last week, and then he was saying that we're not sitting here waiting for some dominoes to fall, but we always have our ear to the ground for what opportunity might be out there. And then he further elaborates, saying that he'd be open into investing into perhaps a charter or being an investor into a team that's currently active, as long as he has influence on whatever entry he basically has involvement with.
All ears, man. I'm all for it. Why don't you touch on some of the other hot points you like here, Sean?
All right, so we have a bunch of driver announcements in order to quickly cover and review. We got some Cup Series ones with 2 supercar drivers are going to make their Cup Series debut at Sonoma in a couple weeks. Cam Waters, he's going to be driving the RFK number 60 Ford at Sonoma. And then we have supercars driver Will Brown will be driving the number 33 Richard Childress Racing Chevrolet that was previously driven by Brody Kostecki last year.
JD up. I'm excited to see Cam Waters, to be honest.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty interesting to see how these supercars drivers. We're in the middle of a bit of a supercars invasion, as you know, Rich. It's only just continuing.
This new car is very much a spinoff of the IMSA car, which is very much on par with the supercars they run over in Australia. So part of what I think NASCAR's goal was to be able to draw. They want to get this international draw thing going on. So I'm thinking this is what they want. That said, I still hate this new car in the short tracks.
Yeah, they got work to do with that. But, as we've kind of talked down
Beat
to death.
that head doors.
Yeah. We got a few other driver announcements. You mentioned it earlier. I think it was either off air or on air earlier. Connor Zilisch. He's going to have 3 more Truck Series starts on short tracks with Spire Motorsports. He'll be racing at Richmond in August, Bristol in September, and Martinsville later in the year, on top of the previously announced races at Talladega and Homestead in October as well there, Rich.
Giddy up. Let's see. He must be turning 18 before Talladega, or they wouldn't let him race there, or Homestead. So,
yeah, pretty much. He's going to be in that number 7 truck, as we've known. That's a good truck to be in. It finished 5th this past week with Sammy Smith.
Yep.
All right. Next up, we have Connor Mosak. He's going to be driving the number 88 Junior Motorsports Chevrolet at the Chicago Street Course and at the Charlotte Roval there, Rich.
Dude, this 88, I don't care who's in this 88 Xfinity car. Look out. Every race we've seen that car on track, it has been good. So, hey, he's got a road course background. Let's see it.
Yeah, it's going to be on full display and some good equipment there overall. Speaking of good equipment in the Xfinity Series, we have 2 more drivers announced to the JGR number 19. First, we have Brett Moffitt driving with the car at Iowa.
His hometown, or home state, I should say.
This is probably one of the best opportunities of his career right here, really, Rich.
Well, I think he proved himself in that truck event, right? Because he did run Xfinity last year and was really a non-factor. And boy, he sure looked good in that number 1 truck ride this year. He parlayed that into more rides. And we already know, the relationship with Toyota, Tricon, and Joe Gibbs. So, look, this is an opportunity for him to prove something in that number 19 car.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I think he's definitely got the skill set capable in order to record a pretty solid finish. And with that being good equipment now, let's not forget that 19 cars competed for wins this year.
Yep.
We could see a surprise winner that week at Iowa. But speaking of the 19 car, the other driver that's going to make some starts in it that was announced this week is Josh Bilicki. He's going to be driving for multiple races in that car starting at Portland. His other races have not been made public yet. We just know he's starting off at Portland in that 19.
He's got some road racing background. That's usually where he's outperformed the equipment he's in. He's never really been in good equipment. Let's see it.
Yeah, it's going to be real interesting to see, especially because even on the oval, sometimes he's actually kind of outperformed the equipment and got some positive place differential times.
Agreed.
So there you go. We'll quickly go through our paint schemes for this week here. Let's just get right on into it here and talk about.
We have a lot of overlap this week on that.
Yeah, so we're going to start off mentioning the number 5 car. Kyle Larson's HendrickCars.com scheme. This is a special scheme that he's running in honor of the double this week. And as you can see from this picture, it's also a very similar scheme on his Indy car ride as well.
Go Hendrick Cars for sponsoring him. It looks good. You know me with the blue and orange. I'm all for it. So, and I do think that IndyCar hot rod looks sweet. I'm ready, man.
Yeah, it looks really nice. It looks real fast, real clean, blue, white, the orangish yellow. Very clean, like it. And then my next pick here is going to be Brad Keselowski's BuiltSubmarines.com patriotic scheme. We know patriotic schemes are a big theme for this week's race at Charlotte there.
Yeah, it will be a theme all weekend. You'll see a lot of different paint schemes. NASCAR has always done a salute to the troops, a hat tip to them and what they do at this race for the troops. They always bring in a big military crowd. They give some special passes. They honor our fallen heroes with names on the cars. They bring family in, give them hot passes. They do a lot of great things. Hat tip to NASCAR, Charlotte Motor Speedway. This is something that I believe started with Humpy Wheeler back in the day. and I love it. This is a sick paint scheme.
I know. It's probably, in my opinion, my favorite of the patriotic paint schemes this week.
I'm with you.
It looks the best, without question.
Yep, I'm with you.
But you pointed out another paint scheme here, Rich, that also was patriotic. Let's just throw it up here.
I thought they did an excellent job, Bass Pro Shops and Tracker, with this one. I mean, it's so unique from what you usually see Martin Truex run in the colors, from these two sponsors. Hat tip to them for really going all out. I mean, this if you want to talk about patriotic, this is it, right?
It is a good scheme. It's a little bit busy for me to be my favorite, but overall, it's still a paint scheme I like. This is Martin Truex Jr.'s Bass Pro Shops, Tracker Boats, ATVs, patriotic scheme there. I do like the blue with the stars on the front. The hood looks absolutely great. I like the little red stripes on the side there. I'm just not sure if the white overall is what's maybe throwing me off a little bit, but I still like it otherwise, though. There is one other paint scheme I do want to shout out this week because I thought this was too good in order to pass up, and also because I think this makes the regular scheme of this so much better. It's Christopher Bell's Ream Patriotic scheme.
It's solid. It definitely is solid.
Yeah. Normally with the Ream schemes, like the back part of the side is usually just filled with just the stripe and nothing else. I love that they made use of that space finally and filled it with the stars to keep it in theme. Such a win.
True story. I would say the Martin Truex one, they actually got both sponsors on there. They got where the Ream is, they got Bass Pro Shops, and then they had the tracker where the stars were.
Yeah, exactly. I like it when you're able to fill out the space effectively, and I think compared to Seabell's regular Ream scheme, this is so much better, man. So much better than the regular one.
I agree.
All right, Rich, let's get on down to it and preview Charlotte this week. So let's lay down the stage.
So another 1.5 mile track. Dominators are going to be key. Last year's race, 3 drivers led 302 of the 400 laps. So 3/4 of the race was led by 3 drivers. Obviously, those 3 drivers were significant scores. 2 of them finished first and second. The other one was fourth. So again, if you had those 3 in lineups last year, you were in really good shape as far as a points day goes, even if you kind of punted because you could have grabbed someone like a Zane Smith who finished 10th, right? So nothing really changes from that perspective. I will say this. If you have the ability to bet live, strongly consider it. There are some trends we see with this race with it being so long. I've been going to this race for years and years, watched it for a long time. My grandparents live not far from the track. It is super common to see cars that don't seem all that impressive running around, say, 12th. As long as back in the day, we only had 15, 16 cars that would stay on the lead lap, right? Because we get these long green flag runs to start the race off. I doubt it's that bad now with this new car, but it's something to keep in mind. But what I will say is it was real common to see those cars in that 10, 12 range during daylight, just kind of staying on the lead lap, hanging around. And when the sun went down and the lights came on, all of a sudden, announcers weren't talking about them. And with less than 100 laps to go, they're going, well, we haven't talked about such and such today. And now they're in the top 5, top 3, and they sure look fast. So I'll be in Discord watching. I'm going to try to help promote and look for some live lines this year. I'm all about trying to bet some live lines because with this being such a long race, there's going to be some really soft lines early on that we potentially could take advantage of. The goal of the team and the drivers for the first half of this race is figure out what the car can do, save the car, save the driver, understand what changes you need to do when the sun goes down because they will loosen up. Kevin Harvick talked about it on there last week. As the sun goes down, the track cools, the front end turns better. That caused the back end to slide around more. So don't be surprised if you hear drivers complaining they're tight or they're struggling, and then all of a sudden we get to the last 100 miles and they're the cars to beat. So there's going to be a lot of things that happen once the sun goes down. Really, in my opinion, Sean, the real race doesn't start until the sun goes down, so I'm willing to take some shots on my bets.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I 100% agree with the whole live betting tip right there, Rich. Live betting on a race like this is going to be so crucial just because you mentioned it. These cars just go through a lot of different track conditions. The track goes through a lot of changes. It changes how the cars completely race. And even somebody that looks like they could be dominating for the first half could just fall off a rock basically through the second half. We saw that with Ross Chastain at this exact race about 2 years ago when he dominated early. And then by the second half of the race, well, his car didn't make it. So there you go.
And it's common. It happens. It happens what Truex did years ago when he led almost the whole darn thing was not common. We did not see that. The year Busch won. Busch was basically fighting the car all the way around the track, and then the sun went down, and all of a sudden he was the car to beat.
Pretty much. So regarding the DFS strategy for this race, you definitely want to still hit on the dominators, though, overall, because there's still a lot of laps in order to be found and a lot of points that could be gained just from picking the drivers that do lead plenty of laps. But this is also a race, I find, where you're going to want to also find some place differential where you can find it as well for the price. But you also want to have drivers that can just make it through the end without their cars having trouble and without their teams just being able to get it all the way together and be able to finish with a solid finishing position.
And I want to caution folks, be leery of using Kyle Larson. I do think he's capable of running well here. We saw Tony Stewart finish third here. He's in better shape than Tony. But Larson's one of the highest priced, if not the highest priced driver. I think he's priced higher than Hamlin off the top of my head. It's either him or Hamlin or 1-2. He's going to start most likely from the back for missing the driver's meeting. You're not going to get points for that. He's probably going to qualify in the top 15, so you're not going to get place differential for that. So don't get caught assuming that, all right? He's high priced, so he's going to be a decent contrarian play. From a betting standpoint, I'm probably fading the bet. I'm not going to necessarily fade him for DFS, but I just want to caution people. He's doing something that isn't easily done, and not many pull it off. Kurt Busch was in good equipment in both races, and he blew a motor, which we haven't really blown motors. I mean, that was 10 years ago, 2014. Just all I'm saying is when you use Larson, be laser accurate when you're using him. Don't just assume, hey, it's cool. He's going to run well at Indy. Now he's coming to Charlotte. We're going to see another great run here. Just be a little cautious with that is all I'm saying.
Also, we should be wary about the fact that the Indy 500 could potentially be dealing with weather issues that could throw a whole nother wrench into this whole Kyle Larson business as well, too.
Rick Hendrick said they're going to have a hard time pulling him out of Indy. And I am not ruling out that if there's weather delays that we don't see Larson miss this race. Like there are very plausible scenarios that Larson may not make this race or may not get there in time, or what they may have to do a driver swap. And keep in mind, if they do a driver swap, Larson's not going to get credit for that race. The driver that starts the race will. So
yeah, which would be Justin Allgaier.
Right, because he's similar size, and so that was something they were looking at. So all I'm saying is, you guys know I love Larson, but let's tread real lightly if you're looking at him for DFS and betting purposes.
Yeah, it's something that we have to keep in mind because this is a big story that we're going to have to be following all the way through the weekend, all the way through even the Indy 500. So it actually is important to pay attention to what's happening in the Indy 500 this week because it actually does affect the NASCAR race in quite a big way right there.
Let's say he cuts a tire or gets into the wall, halfway through the race and he's not hurt, right? We're assuming he's fine. All right. All of a sudden I'd be all in on Kyle Larson at that point, right? He shouldn't be exhausted. His race is done. He's going to have plenty of time to hydrate, get back to Charlotte, hit the driver's meeting, all of that sort of stuff. So to your point, and again, I promise I will be in Discord on Sunday. All right. I'm going to be mowing the lawn on Saturday. All that stuff's going to be put to rest. I will be sitting in my lazy boy I won't watch lineups because I don't do that, but I will be recommending lineups. I will be watching the race. I will be keeping track of the Indy 500. So I will keep you abreast, but you're going to have to be in Discord if you want to be up to date from us anyway with that action.
Yeah, 100%. 100% agree right there, Rich. Especially because I'll be covering the trucks and the Xfinity this week. You're going to be the main guy on Cup. So pressure's on for you, man.
Bro, but I tell you what, of all the weekends, of all the races to do this to me with, I can't thank you enough because since 1987 up until 2016, I was either at the Indy 500 or the Coke 600. So, man, that was 30 years of going to these Memorial Day races. I'm in my groove, bro. I'm telling you, I'm ready. Bring it on.
All right, there you go right there. So for those that were hoping to see me on Sunday, I'm pretty much not going to have a high chance of being in the Discord there due to another obligation. So
you're stuck with me.
Those that wanted to see Rich more than me, you get your wish this week. There you go.
I don't think there's too many of those, Sean. There's a lot of people that look for Sean's info on Cup, man. So let's not get too excited here.
You never know. There's people that like you more than me out there too, just as much as I'm sure there's people that like me more than you too.
Yeah, I think
it goes both ways, I guess.
It does. But it's funny when I hear people talking about, it's like, that's Sean's content you want. I'm the loud guy that people recognize. It's Sean's content, though, that you keep referencing, and give Sean his proper due because he's earned it.
Now we're just going into a whole little praising cycle of praising each other.
I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to, but I'm just saying there was a couple of comments that got made over the last 2 weeks. I'm like, time out, bro. Go hit Sean. That's all, Sean. It is the longest race of the year. Things happen. Indy's the same way. That is a long Indy race. Weird things happen Memorial Day weekend, folks, just the way it is. I'm going to rattle off some of the notable starts this weekend, Sean, real quickly. Trucks, Brett Moffitt in the number 1. Gotta love it. Connor Mozak, the number 7. Hey, we were excited to see him do some road course racing, but let's see what he's got in the Spire truck this weekend. Jennifer Jo Cobb, sorry, doesn't really do much for me. She's a back marker. Sorry, Jennifer. I love what you do for the sport, but you're a back marker. Memphis Farrell in the 20 truck. Mason Maggio in the 21. Keith McGee in the 22. None of those excite me too much. Farrell's kind of interesting. He's been kind of up and down at times. Caden Honeycutt in the number 45 niche truck. That does excite me. I don't care if he qualifies up front or in the back. He should be a potential use in your lineup as a value play. Connor Jones, maybe he doesn't wuss out and can keep driving the truck this weekend. Hopefully that's the case. They're going to have to sign him full-time. He's been some of the faster trucks out of that Thor Sport garage. Jeffrey Earnhardt, the number 67. Hey, he's got a cool name. We don't really see much on the track with him, but hat tip. Stephon Parsons, we've talked about him in the past. Justin Carroll. Jack Wood in the 91. We'll see. I can't get a good read on him. Hopefully Sean has you covered with him because I'm real dicey on Jack Wood. In the Xfinity Series, we got Garrett Smythley in the 6, Patrick Emling in the 07, J.J. Yaley in the 14. Chase Elliott in the 17. Take note of this. He is going to be working with Greg Ives, who was his Xfinity crew chief his rookie year when he had his best season in Xfinity. I'm expecting good things from Chase Elliott this weekend. I'm looking forward to seeing how Sean does this write-up because, quite frankly, I think the Xfinity race is the toughest to handicap this weekend because not only do you have Chase Elliott, you got Taylor Gray in the 19. You got Ty Gibbs in the 20. Dean Thompson in the 26. Not too worried there. Noah Gragson in the 30. Equipment, I'm not so sure about, but he could be a solid little sneak play at times. Kyle Busch in the 33 for RCR. I'm really curious to see that one go. Kenori Ogata, I'll be honest, I don't have any background on that one, Sean. You are on your own there, bro.
He's not going to be a factor.
Okay. Jade Buford in the 74 and Natalie Decker. Hey, hopefully she doesn't wreck. In the Cup car, Kaz Grala will be in the 15. Shane Van Gisberg in the 16. I think this is a great experience for Shane. Look, he needs to get up to speed on what's happening in the Cup Series. They've been kind of easing him into things. You just got thrown to the wolves, bro. Good luck. J.J. Yaley in the 44. Ty Dillon in the 50. I was a little confused on this team because we've already heard of Heim going in the 50 for Trackhouse, but this number 50 is not with Trackhouse. So I'm going to have to do some digging.
No, it's not with 2311. It's actually based on remnants of the Money Team Racing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the staffing from this team here, the number 50 is not 2311. It is, I'm looking up the team name here real quick.
It's Amerivet, something like that.
Yeah, Team Amerivet. It's a team that's running this week. A lot of the staff is from the Money Team Racing, that race team that Floyd Mayweather was an owner for. So Yeah, I'm not expecting much out of that team, really, to be honest with
No.
you.
And,
So.
and the thing is, the Dillon guys have run well here, but I can't. If it was the 2311 ride, sorry, I said Trackhouse, but if it was 2311, I'm with you, Sean. I'd be more in. BJ McLeod in the 66, we get to see him back. Maybe some of that $40 million they got from the charter sale will go into a good car this weekend. They were good at Daytona. Not hold my breath. Hey, Jimmy Johnson used to dominate this venue. I don't think he's going to be a factor, but it will be interesting, in my opinion, to see if there's an improvement to Legacy Motorsports overall, because at the very least, Jimmy knows how to get around this track. He is one of the most successful drivers at Charlotte. Hell, when it was Lowe's Motor Speedway and he had the Lowe's sponsorship, he damn near owned the place. So it'll be interesting, kind of like Dover. I'm curious to see if we see a step forward with Legacy, just because at least Jimmy knows, although he struggles with this car, but he does know the line, the speed, the feel. So I'll be curious to see how that works out.
Yeah, totally. Jimmy, Kaz Gralla, and SVG are the three that I have my eye on out of that list.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm not really interested in the rest, just saying. Not trying to be mean, but I'm really not. Jimmy might be feasible. Yeah. Jimmy's price point, and actually all three of their price points, make them viable plays depending on where they start.
Yeah. In my opinion, I think the one if you told me to pick one of the three right now, I'm gonna say actually SVG is the one that I'd start of the three.
Yep, I would agree with you. There's not a doubt in my mind. I'd agree with you there. Yeah. Well, let's go. So hey, remember, if you want any of our content, mine, Sean's, the whole staff, go to fantasyguru.com. We have a number of promos available out there. If you're into betting, we've got a betting one. If you're into DFS, we got a DFS one. If you're into all of it, we got you covered. If you're just into racing and you enjoy the racing stuff and would like to dabble in other things, hey, $40 gets you 12 months. That you get you all of this year's racing, next year's racing, plus MMA, PGA, and all the like. Go to fantasyguru.com. Check out the subscribe button at the top. Take a look. Tool around. If you're not real sure what works or makes sense, or you already have a membership and you're not sure of what you want to change it to, reach out to support@fantasyguru.com and they will be more than happy to point you in the right direction. I've yet to have anyone contact support and not walk away a happy camper.
That's true. Usually, most of the people that deal with support are usually very satisfied with their experiences. So go over there, get any of the packages, email support if you have any trouble. They'll get you the best possible deal you can get. And that includes even our content that are covered amongst those packages. So go out there and get it.
All right, Sean. Well, how about you lead us off? Let's get into some DFS action, man. Let's roll.
All right. Let's go with our top price picks to watch. And, well, guess what, Rich? We're going to go through this section very, very quickly just because we picked the same exact three drivers in a row. So let's just talk about the three there. Denny Hamlin, Tyler Reddick, Chase Elliott. I love all three of these picks right here. Just saying, Hamlin is the driver that we've talked about it all year. Hamlin versus Larson has been the very big story, but Larson's dealing with the whole Indy 500 double thing, which could really change things around. And despite Larson being in probably the best car on mile and a half, Hamlin's been one of the most consistent there, and he's the second most expensive driver on both sites overall. Love him right there. Tyler Reddick has been very fast on these tracks as well, particularly to the mile and a half all year. I like his price point at DraftKings, $9,700. On FanDuel, he is the third most expensive driver behind Larson and Hamlin. Then you have Chase Elliott there, who's people forget that this is actually a really, really good track historically for Elliott as well. He's had a lot of strong runs so far at Charlotte Motor Speedway, and he's also been very consistent at the mile and a half so far this year too. He's finished 12th or better in every single race in a mile and a half this season for Chase Elliott there.
And he's been on the hot streak like we've talked about. I mean, he's just been rattling off top five after top five. Look, Hendrick in general has dominated Charlotte over the years. Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson. We've seen William Byron have great runs here. We've seen Elliott have great runs here. And I think, people are forgetting Elliott and Hamlin a little bit because they wrecked out of the event together last year. Only completing, I think, like 185 laps. So I think they've been a little bit off the radar. I'm with you. I also like the price. I mean, Elliott, I think, is underpriced, quite frankly, especially, again, I love Larson. Everybody knows this, but there's got to be some sort of risk factor or cost associated with the guy that's trying to run 1,100 miles. I get Tony Stewart finished third here, doing it the second time. It was the second time, okay? And he's the only guy that's ever completed all 1,100 miles. So this core group is hard for me to get away from. I do like Martin Truex quite a bit as well. His price point is reasonable. William Byron, I could understand if someone wants to go that route. Again, I'm on the Hendrick thing, but for Hendrick, it's going to be Elliott, Byron, Larson. Bowman is a decent play at the right price. But if I'm looking to win or in that top tier, it's kind of where I'm at. Truex has at times just been so good here at Charlotte. I mean, one year he led 392 of the 400 laps. That doesn't happen often, and they were on their A game back then. But I keep going back. He's a frustrated driver right now, and when Martin gets a little fired up, look out. So I'm not sleeping on him,
sure.
but I'm with. I love it when Sean and I are on the same three guys. That usually means we're on to something.
Oh, definitely, for sure. I like all three of these drivers. I think they're going to be the three best DFS performers, maybe outside of Kyle Larson, if Larson has a good day or not. But that remains to be seen, depending on the Indy situation so far.
Agreed.
One other driver I am going to shout out, though, while we're at it, is Ryan Blaney, because he won this race 1 year ago, too. Although he's expensive on DraftKings, I think you can get some usage out of him at FanDuel, where he's $12,000 overall. He's the fifth most expensive driver, with only Larson, Hamlin, Reddick, and Byron being more expensive compared to DraftKings, where he's the third most expensive driver at $10,300, which I think is a little bit higher than I would like. But if he does look very good in pre-race events, I'm going to be considering him right there.
And we talked about already, Ford has already started. They've started to catch up here. Engine, whatever it is, they're in the right direction. Mid-tier options. I'll be frank, I don't disagree with really any of Sean's picks here. I was very close to picking the same, especially one of his guys here. So why don't you lead us off, Sean?
So as far as mid-tier options are concerned, we do overlap on one driver within our picks, and that's Bubba Wallace. We know Bubba is good at this track in recent years. In fact, actually, he finished fourth in this exact race 1 year ago. He's also scored some top 10 finishes at the 1.5 miles this season. 23:11, they're going to be looking fast. We saw it with Tyler Reddick throughout the 1.5 miles earlier this year. Wouldn't shock me if Bubba's not far off from him speed-wise, and for the price point, love it right there. He is 7,700 on DraftKings, and on FanDuel he's about 7,500. So overall, very, very good price point. Alex Bowman, he's another one of my picks. You mentioned it earlier there, Rich. He's a decent play for the price point. I think he's a very good play for the price point on both sites, because he's under that 8K range, and with a equipment that's capable of placing in the top 10, I want all of that right there. And then I have Brad Keselowski, who you could maybe argue is a top price driver, depending on which site you're on. But I think, considering that RFK has just been on the performance rise over the last couple of weeks, and the fact that they keep getting better and better, I want to get some action on RFK this week. And I think I like Keselowski a little bit more than Buescher at this particular track, Rich.
That's fair. I think I like Buescher a little more just because of the price point. I also liked how Buescher ran well at Darlington and kind of had it won. He was beating Brad, quite frankly. I also liked how he ran at North Wilkesboro. I do like the Brad call. I went a little different than Brad because Kyle Busch was so much cheaper at $700 savings at $8,000 for Kyle Busch. It was tough for me to get around him. You go back and look at Kyle Busch, even in this new car at RCR, he's been rather good at Charlotte. I'm forgetting off the top of my head where he finished, but it was top 5, top 6 last year, if I recall, maybe top 7.
He was
8,000, 6th. Okay. At 8,000, I think he's a value. His teammate, Austin Dillon, has run well here, ironically. So I do like Bubba is such a value at 7,700. And I kind of like Ty Gibbs. We keep talking about this young man. He's trending in the right direction. He's, teammate to Denny Hamlin. These Toyotas, I'm on board there. So, I want to mention this name. He's a little high priced, but if you want to be contrarian somewhere just because of the price point, Christopher Bell did lead laps here last year. He read around 50 laps. He's capable. He has not been on a very good hot streak, so I'm kind of still on the fading plan because I'm not really seeing the trend I want out of him yet. But at some point, it's the page is going to get turned, and Bell's going to be a factor. And the fact that Sean used him as a paint scheme, careful. That paint schemes doing well. They seem to go hand in hand lately. So just throwing that out.
Or it could go the other way. We did mention Cindric and Stenhouse last week in our paint schemes, and drama unfolded with both of them. So take that with a grain of salt.
There is that, Sean. There is that. Sleepers and bargains. Shocker. We got a lot of overlap here. So Sean and I are both on Ricky Stenhouse Jr., who, again, at his price point, $6,600, he's been shockingly pretty solid, like a top 10 finisher here. Justin Haley, look, he's been cheap. I don't think Justin Haley has let us down in the last 6 weeks, Sean.
You could even argue most of the season he has not let anybody that's used him in DFS down. He's been quietly having a very, very good year for racing equipment. And I think DraftKings is starting to catch on because they raised his price up a little bit more this week to 5,800.
I would say he's finally approaching 6,000.
But FanDuel still has not gotten a clue because he's at the second cheapest price over all of the entire slate. $2,500, with only JJ Yeley, Kaz Gralla, and Ty Dillon being cheaper than him. He's the same price point as Harrison Burton and Daniel Hemrick on FanDuel.
And he has been so much better. I tell you what, I told someone this via text, one of my buddies. I want Justin Haley in some good equipment at some point. I really do. The kid has impressed, shouldn't say a kid anymore. He's a young man. The young man has impressed me in Xfinity. He's impressed everywhere he's been and driven. I keep going, man, will someone give him an opportunity and good equipment? It's just not happening. This is where we differ a little bit. You're on Ryan Preece. I don't hate that call. I think that's a very savvy move there. Why don't you tell us a little bit why you went that direction?
So when it comes to Ryan Preece, I'm banking on the fact that really it's partially the equipment because he's with Stewart Haas Racing. And although he hasn't been the strongest of the SHR cars, he's also the cheapest of them. And his performance on 1.5 mile tracks, he just finishes races and finds place differential. He is yet to score negative place differential at 1.5 miles this year. And so many of his finishes have positive place differential. I think he's like the nice, safe play that you can plug in and he's just going to finish for you. And I just like having a driver like that this week, especially when a good amount of the field, you can't exactly trust where they're going to finish because some of these drivers in the 6K and 5K ranges have been all over the place with results. Preece, at least, is one of the few where I can say he's at least been kind of consistent for what the price point can bring, and that's what I'd want in my lineup this week.
You mentioned they're all over the place. One thing I found interesting, it's common we go to these tracks and you see a handful of drivers where they have a bunch of top fives, a bunch of top 10s relative to the amount of races, right? And Fincy had asked me some questions, and so I was doing some other digging, and I pulled up the last 4 years of just this race. Nobody has more than 3 top 10s in 4 races at this race. Kyle Busch is in that category. I think Elliott was in that category. Austin Dillon was in that category. So that's the reason I looked at Dillon. It was a very similar thing you did. It was like, wait a second. This is not someone I had consistently as a top 10. I mean, I don't know if I would have thought top 15. At 6,700, like you said earlier, if I can get someone that's going to be a top 10, top 15 finisher with that kind of price point, it's a solid play. I do think Dillon's risky. We have not seen it this year. We had hoped the crew chief change would help. I do think it takes a little bit because they're always building these cars 2 to 3 races ahead as far as the tweaking and everything else and the setups. So this may be one of the first events where we actually get to see that pairing kind of gel or come together. But I tell you what, at 6,700, I feel like Austin Dillon's kind of a steal this weekend based on where he's finished the last couple of years.
I don't blame you for the call. I actually would say that Dillon, based on the history, is certainly worth a look. But for me, I'm going to say it depends on where exactly he qualifies and what
That's
he gives
fair.
me during practice overall, because he's been such a mixed bag overall as far as performance. And although the 1.5 miles is where I would trust him the most right now, because that's been some of his better runs this year overall, I just think that the speed has just been all over the place depending on the week. So really
It's
never
risky.
know. It's
It,
a
it's a
risk. And
risky it's a risky contrarian call is what it is.
yeah, I do like the aspect that it's contrarian, and I think for that it could work. But I think I just like Priest, who's about $300 cheaper on DraftKings overall compared to AD. And also mentioning this about Priest as well, he finished 13th in this race 1 year ago and scored positive place differential while it's driving for the same team he does now.
And again, Ford's been doing this. So while Dylan hasn't really shown us an improvement this way, all of Ford has over the last month. And so it's all going to depend on money. It's going to depend on qualifying. It's going to depend on chasing place differential, all those things. It was more of when I went and looked, I was shocked at Dylan's kind of success specifically in this event. And he has won this race. He did win this race. It's been many moons ago, but he did win this race. It's just something I'm watching. And again, I even put in the article, I reserve the right to change my mind on it because I know I'm kind of sticking my neck out there. But in my opinion, it's worth something to kind of consider.
Truly. I do think it's like I said, I think he's definitely worth the look. Just I'm keeping an eye on it through practice and qualifying before I make a final judgment call.
That's absolutely reasonable, man. All right. So you want to go over some of our bets? What do you think?
Yeah, let's do our betting core fours. And really, it's more like we have separate ones, but this one's almost exactly the same here, too, between our two. So we'll just go forth and name the three drivers we have in common. Denny Hamlin plus 600, Tyler Reddick plus 800, Chase Elliott plus 1100. I was kind of contemplating between if I wanted to put Elliott or Byron into that slot right there, just because I think those two are going to perform at a very similar level this week. But I went with Elliott just because the track history favored him a little bit more. And overall, the odds are slightly better for Elliott as far as being able to make more money off of that. And then as far as my last driver is concerned, I just wanted to throw a longer shot here with a little bit deeper odds. So I went with Bubba Wallace at plus 2,800. But I will say this, the last driver that Rich did list, I would also consider that as a potential bet too. So if you wanted another pick within that range, I'm not against that one bet.
I like the Bubba Wallace call, especially at the odds. I think his odds, they should come down. His history and everything else, his odds are inflated. Because I tell you what, at 2,800, he's probably got plus odds on the top 5, plus odds on the top 10. So at the very least, I might consider doing something like that even. His odds are not correct. I love that call. I had the same debate on Byron Elliott. For me, it was Byron just is struggling here lately. Bad luck, all that sort of stuff. I'm not saying look, we see that. I say this all the time. We see the ebbs and flow in racing. I expect Hamlin to hit a little bit of a slump. I expect Larson to hit a little bit of a slump. These things are going to happen. I'm expecting Bowman to kind of maybe come up a little bit. I'm expecting Christopher Bell to maybe come up a little bit. I'm expecting Blaney to kind of catch fire again. These things are going to happen. For right now, though, Elliott seems to be on the cusp of catching fire. Like he is really, we say he's been hot, but we haven't, the win came at Texas, was very quiet. He's been quiet the last couple of years. I will not be shocked to see him win here. So for me, that was where the lean was. I went. I also like that he had the longer odds. To me, it didn't make sense. I think Elliott's the better play over Byron anyway. So I was right with Sean on that. And I did. I can't get away from Truex, Sean. I know I sound like I'm beating a dead horse all the time, but I just cannot get away from Truex. And at 10-1, he's right there with Elliott. I really like the bet. Although, if you pinned me down, I'm feeling Tyler Reddick this weekend.
Not a bad week to consider Reddick, considering how good he is at this track overall, too. Let's not forget, he has a couple of top 10s, so he's going to be a factor, especially considering 2311's been bringing the speed to the 1.5 miles this year. Reddick has been leading in almost all of them.
he was this close at Darlington. He got a little greedy at Darlington, and it's hard for me. It's one of those things. Brad kind of lumped into that, but he had a win coming, in my opinion. Reddick just keeps kind of lucking out of the wins. And so it's one of those things where it's coming. I don't want to miss it.
Let's not forget Vegas. He was chasing Kyle Larson down and had the faster car, but just didn't make the right moves to get by him.
Good call. Good call, Sean. Excellent call. So that's where I'm kind of at. Let's rattle through the DFS picks here. Again, quite a bit of overlap with, and folks, I'll tell you, when Sean, just so people know, I'll be transparent here, peep behind the curtain. We do this completely separately, okay? Yeah, I go in there and type it up, or he goes in and types it up. Some of us have it done before the other, but we all do all this research on our own and then go do it. We aren't looking at each other going, oh, hey, we're going to be easy today. I'm just going to overlap. So when Sean and I completely overlap like this, I start to get really confident on my picks and plays because there's a reason I like working with Sean. There's a reason I trust Sean. When we overlap a lot, there's usually a good reason why.
Yeah, for sure. So let's get right on into the Core 4 DFS picks. You know what?
I'm still locked out of FanDuel, by the way.
Like I said, it's been an every week thing. If you were playing a drinking game and wondering if Rich was going to mention that, you can take a sip now.
I'm in Twitter jail and I'm locked out of FanDuel, so I'm kind of like tits on a boar hog. I'm useless.
All right, let's get into my DFS Core 4 here. I have Denny Hamlin, 10,700 on DK, 13,500 on FanDuel. Second most expensive driver on both sites, but I think is worth the price this week. Chase Elliott, 9,300 on DraftKings, 11,500 on FanDuel. Love the price there. I think he is underpriced on both sides really this week, as is Bubba Wallace, who is 7,700 on DraftKings and 7,500 on FanDuel. And then another driver who I think is also still undervalued, Justin Haley, to round out my Core 4, 5,800 on DraftKings, and an absolutely bonkers 2,500 on FanDuel. I mean, you can make just about any lineup you want with a driver that low on FanDuel there, Rich.
So now it makes me want to change. Now that I've seen yours here, I do want to make a change. The more I look at Justin Haley at 5,800, I'd really rather do that than Austin Dillon at 6,700. That just gives you so many more options. But Austin Dillon is my value play at 6,700. Like I said, I couldn't get past the data, the stats, just kept calling his name. It was weird. Chase Elliott, 9,300. I'm with Sean. That's just underpriced in my opinion. Kyle Busch at 8,000. I know he's been struggling at times and is missing speed at times, but they had speed here last year, same car. $8,000. That's cheap. That puts him, I mean, he's only $300 more than Bubba, and I think Bubba's underpriced at $7,700. So Bubba's my third driver, and like I said, I'm rounding out with Austin Dillon at 6,700. You do a core like this, you have plenty of options to do a couple of things, to go high end, go low end, do a couple of different moves.
Just going to mention it here, Rich, because you mentioned about Kyle Busch's price on DraftKings. I think it's even better on FanDuel because it's 8,500 there.
Really?
Yeah.
Boy, maybe I'm out to lunch, man. They are hating on Kyle Busch this weekend. But, dude, whether it was with RCR, whether it was with Joe Gibbs, whether it was with the old car, whether it was with the new car, the dude has been quick here, man. He's been a top 5, top 10 guy every time.
Ty Gibbs is the next driver up above him at 9,000, followed by Christopher Bell and Chris Buescher. If this was a few years ago, you would not even think that to be even remotely possible.
I'm still, look, Buescher's been great, okay? But I'm still struggling to get there, man. I mean, as far as the pricing goes, I'm all for using him. Don't get me wrong. But, I mean, even on DK, we're looking at 8,700 for Reddick, I think it was.
9,700 for
9,700
DK on Reddick.
On Reddick. Who's 8,700? Buescher was 8,700. Brad K
Buescher was 8,500. Keselowski is 8,700.
8,700. Yeah, sorry about that. And honestly, I put him on par with those guys, so I'll take this $500-700 savings in my opinion, man.
Yeah, and then just below Busch is Bowman and Wallace.
And those are all. I tell you what, there's a lot of value in the mid-tier. The problem is I don't know that anyone in that mid-tier can be one of our dominators.
Well, I say if you're going that far down the price ladder, you're just expecting those drivers to just have a good day, like top 10, maybe sneak into the top 5 when you get towards that price range. If they could go up there and dominate and lead laps, I think that's a big bonus right there.
That's fair. I guess where I'm coming from is I could see having a whole plethora of guys in the top 10. Like you could build a bunch of mid-tier guys and have all of them finish in the top 10. The unfortunate part is, or even half or 3/4 of them being in the top 5. The unfortunate part is, to your point, I don't think they're going to lead a bunch of laps. And with this race being 400 laps long, there's only 2 races we go to, or 2 tracks we go to with more laps than 400, right? The short track events. So,
yep.
Like we said, we've got to hit on the dominators. I think Elliott could be. I'm not sure Kyle Busch could be. Do you know what I'm saying? I wouldn't be shocked to see Bubba lead more laps than Kyle Busch.
Yeah, I think Bubba, out of all the drivers mentioned here, him and Bowman, I think, have the best chance of having the equipment capable of at least maybe finding their way to the front.
Right. I could see Keselowski doing it, but here again, we're going up a price point.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, that was today's Race Guru Thunder Hour, which is obviously over an hour. Race Guru. Wow. I apparently need more coffee, Sean, and it's 7:30 my time, so I don't think coffee is a good idea for my future. But Sean, it's been a blast again, man. I'm so excited for this weekend. Look, I can't lie. I want to see what your Xfinity article looks like, because I put it in my preview article. It is the toughest race to handicap this weekend, in my opinion. There is a lot of talent, a lot of good equipment that's not normally in the series. Honestly, my normal favorites for the week, the Chandler Smiths of the world, the Sammy Smiths, the Sheldon Creeds that I like to kind of dabble in, those guys are plus 2,500, plus 3,000 to win, to give you an idea of what it looks like out there on the slate. So I'm looking forward to that. I appreciate Sean letting me dabble on the Cup side a little bit this weekend. So look forward to that. Feel free to beat up my picks and let me know Sean's the man and I'm not. I'm fine with it. I'm just looking forward to Sunday, dude. I can't wait. This has been a blast. Please go to fantasyguru.com. Check out all our content. You can see anything and everything Sean and I talk and write about. You can find this live stream podcast, rebroadcast, replayed, all over there on the website, fantasyguru.com. Click the subscribe button. Check it out. Be sure to give us a like on the YouTube channel. On behalf of Sean Engel, you can find on Twitter or X at SeanE247. I'm Rich Maletto at Fantasy Bosco. It's been real. Peace.